Okay, so I'm not too mad at the little drum machine kit that I'm starting to put together. The drum beat I think actually sounds pretty decent, even though it's quite simple. With the arpeggiator, I mentioned the fact that you can use modulators with any devices. So I added a steps modulator, which is here, and I use this to modulate the sync rate of the arpeggiator so I can get a little fill, a little 30-second note goodness happening here. All right, I just simply clicked here and modulated that. All right, cool. So we talked about note effects. What about audio effects? Well, I think what I'd like to do, let's go ahead and collapse that. Oops, I meant collapse this. There we go. I want to add some more personality to some of these sounds. All right, there's two claps here and actually layered. All right, only hear this if I sustain it. I layered this clap with this one. If we look at the clip, that's the only sound that's actually not sustaining a whole note. And I'd like these claps to sound distinctly different in some way. I'm going to solo the drum machine track. Okay. If I look at the chain down here, when you're dealing with the drum machine, since it's a container, it's really important to understand if you add effects, are you adding them to the right place? If I want to add an effect that affects the entire drum machine, an audio effect, I can see that there's pluses in various places after the drum machine. The clap is currently visible, and I can see the sampler inside of the drum machine. If I click plus here, as we saw before, it'll bring me to the note effects because I can't put an audio effect before there's an audio signal. It's assuming I want to process the notes that are going to go here. If I look after this, there's a plus button after the sampler. If I click here, it's going to take me to audio effects because it's assuming that I want to add an audio effect after audio leaves the sampler. You'll also notice there's another plus after that, and this one is white. This is saying, do you want to add an effect that'll affect everything coming out of the drum machine, not just the clap? All right. So it's really important to not only see where the pluses are located, but look at the color. There's a blue bracket. The blue pluses mean that whatever I add will be inside of my drum machine. The white plus means that it'll be outside of the drum machine. All right. With that established, I want to add an effect to this clap. You might notice there's also little boxes in here in the sampler where it says notes and it says effects. When I click on these, now I see a green plus. This might all be a little bit confusing, but this can be really, really helpful if you want to create your own preset and you want effects that are included in the preset. Instead of needing to group things together, you can just place the effect directly inside of the device, and this is called nesting. All right. Now, all I want to do is make sure that any effects that I add are going to be inside of the drum machine. Okay. If I do this, now that we don't see any of the chains, here's the white plus. And if I click here, let's say I add an audio effect, a really simple one would be, let's say, a filter, right? Let's go down to filter. My filter is now on the outside of my drum machine, and this will affect everything coming out of it. If I was to save my drum machine as a preset, this effect would not be saved with it because it's not included or nested in the device. I'm bringing this up because it's really important if you want to start making your own custom presets. For example, I think what could make the drums a little bit cooler is maybe adding a bit more oomph and presence. So I'm going to go to this effects box, which will let me add an effect that will affect the entire drum machine, but it'll be nested in my drum machine device. So if I want to save it as a preset, any effects I add here will come along for the ride. So I hit plus, and I'm going to add a device that might be dangerous. This is one where you might want to actually play with some of the presets first, is the saturator. All right, let me start playing the drums. That's just the default setting. That already sounds pretty interesting. Let's check out some presets here though, because we can preview these before I confirm. Ooh. I like that. That's nice. That's nice. Now, again, the saturator has a lot more settings than may be obvious initially. It's good to make sure you really understand what's going on here if you want to take advantage of this. Or like I said, just stick with the presets because the sound designers have done a great job. So This works well. This affects everything here. But like I said, I want to affect one of my claps differently. So let's just select just the clap. And in here, I'm going to add an effect. And let's maybe add some delay. I'll go with delay plus because it's my favorite one. And I want this to ping pong left and right. So I'm going to choose the stereo option. Nice. And I can mask the feedback a bit. Yeah, nah. It was better before. Nice. And as you can see, when I added the delay plus device, if I want to, I can add an audio effect that just goes into the feedback chain. So as audio gets fed out of the delay back into the input to create the feedback, maybe I want to process that with blur or an amp or something like that. So you can get really, really deep with these effects. But the point is now is all the effects that I've added are nested within the drum machine. All right, if I collapse this, I can see this is showing me there's an effect inside of the drum machine there. And you know what? I think I want to add one more thing. And I think I want to add this before the saturator. All right. So since I'm putting these in series, the effects are one after the other. The order matters. Let me click here. And I'm going to add the filter before the saturator because when I do save this as a preset, I want to be able to have a filter accessible from some macro knobs on my remote controls. We'll get to that later. But now, nice. Very cool. I'm going to have to change the pitch of my kick or change the pitch of my bass line. But either way, the drums have a lot more character now because we've incorporated some very cool audio effects and they're all nested within my drum machine.